guest today is an Isagenix Legacy Member and has been in the wellness industry for over 25 years. He is a Chartered Herbalist, medical exercise specialist, strength and nutrition coach for the U.S. Women's Rugby League. He's also a nationally ranked natural bodybuilder. His current focus is on mental health and mindset through the I Am Project. Welcome to the show, David Gilks. Welcome, David.
All right. Thank you very much, man. Good morning.
Morning. You're such an interesting and accomplished person. And I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask you about is the I Am Project. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, I've been in the fitness industry for since my 30s, and I'm 55, so I've been at it a while. And I guess the one thing that I started looking at as I had spent more and more time in the industry, like anybody else, the first time you get into any line of work, you're super excited. You have this insane idea that wow, I'm going to change the world. Everybody's going to listen. They're going to just do exactly what I said, and everybody's going to be amazing. And I'll be held up as this this incredible leader and transformational artist. And then I realized that people don't listen. And the failure rate in the fitness industry is over 85%, and the weight loss industry it's almost 100%. Almost nobody ever stays the course. And after and of course I kind of go, well, it's either their fault or my fault. So let's just assume in the beginning that's my fault. Maybe I'm not a good enough trainer. Maybe I don't have enough information. So you take more courses and you take more certifications and you try harder and you overextend yourself. And then there's something that I heard from a trainer named Phil Kaplan, who was a really an amazing trainer in the U.S. And he said, the fitness industry is the only industry where you can actually pay for a service that's advertised, fail to get the results, and then blame yourself. I go, yeah, right. So well, that was really interesting, and I loved what he said because it made me more accountable. So I didn't blame the client, and though I get frustrated with them and myself. But after a while, I just go, man, it's not working. Like we get some success, and maybe my standards are too high, or maybe the standards are too low. Like there's all this process of trying to figure out what's that mid ground. And so there's a couple of things, and a few things parallel. There's a few things going on inside my head that had nothing to do with each other that I thought. So one was Tony Robbins was on one side of my head now this is going back a long time. It was Get the Edge audio CDs, right? So,
fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah. You have to go through, it's like a required reading, like all the Tony Robbins, Giant Within, all this required reading, I think.
Yeah. So Tony Robbins was one side of my head, and Get the Power, and I had a couple of his books, and it wasn't him. Like Tony Robbins, I have a love-hate relationship with him. I love some of his stuff, and but then I don't like him. But the framework of what he does is brilliant. If I pull him out of the picture and say the framework of what he does was extraordinary. But I was interested in not him or what he was doing. I was interested in where he got it from, because he made reference to neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes, exactly. That's where he started. He started with NLP. Yes. That's right.
Yeah. So John Grinder, Richard Bandler. So I was interested in where he started from, not him himself. So I was kind of digging into NLP, and this was again a couple decades ago. In NLP, and it was talking about these submodalities, right? These things going on inside your brain, right? We process information, through our senses: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, gustatory, olfactory. And so that was formulating on one side of my brain. Again, not knowing where it was going to go, what it meant. And then trauma, and what emotional trauma, and he was able to collapse phobias in seconds, where therapists couldn't do it in years, and he was doing some pretty amazing stuff. So again, I still didn't know what it meant. Like I was taking training, I spent thousands of dollars on courses, but it still wasn't. It was still sitting all by itself in one part of my head, and it wasn't really as effective as I could be. And everything kind of fell into place when I started getting involved in orthopedic rehab. So I started, there's some training I started doing probably 17 years, longer, I guess now. I've been on the planet way too long. But it's this orthopedic rehab program designed for strength trainers like myself, and it was really helping trainers understand the mechanism of injury, what was going on with the nervous system when the body was traumatized, and then what doctors were doing, what surgery did, and then the rehab process. So, I was filling in the blanks of, okay, how do you help broken people? And what stood out for me inside that conversation was that everything was almost neurological. I have an ACL tear, right? So I injured my knee and the surgery was done, but the nervous system was still affected. There was a guarded thing inside the brain. There's a nervous system was still affected, not just the tissue to the knee. I dislocate my shoulder. Well, shoulder dislocation comes to something called an apprehension sign, which means fear, right? I'm apprehensive. So if I rotate somebody's arm back very slowly, there'll be a certain angle where the amygdala of the brain will light up and it'll shoot this fear message to the body, and the person will quickly draw their arm in for fear of it dislocating. So I go, well, that's really interesting. So the physical injuries are only part tissue, only part physical, but they're really neurological. It's in the nervous system. And then the understanding that actually muscles are only chunks of meat. They don't do anything. They're driven almost exclusively by the nervous system and controlled by the nervous system and then powered by our metabolism. But by themselves, you're just a flank steak. Right?
Yeah, that's interesting to say. And just to interrupt you, you know that experiment where they take someone's arm and then they put a fake arm and they hit it with a hammer and then the person freaks out, right? Like the body, like they can feel the pain.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. It's so crazy. So yes, I completely understand what you're getting at.
Yeah. So, and again, so I got, well, it's really interesting. So everything about me physically, if I want to change, if I have a damage to my knee, the damage is also to the patterns of my brain that operated the knee. So I have to actually go into the brain to change the map, because I have an injured map in my brain of the, it's like scarring, taking a CD out of we don't have them anymore, I don't think, but taking a CD out of the tray and scratching it with a nail, it just doesn't play the same, even though it's the same CD. And so the memory of my knee injury has an injury part of the memory, and now fear and apprehension and lack of desire to put weight on that joint, it's all there. And so, well, that's really interesting. And then my brain kind of slammed two ideas together saying, I wonder if the same way I deal with somebody's injured knee is the same way I deal with somebody's injured past. Is it the same circuitry? Is it the same process? And is it necessary to go through all the convoluted sifting and sorting of history and conversation? Do we have to go make it that messy? Or maybe we can actually get to this process faster. And it's not because we don't want to have to do the work, and it's not because, let's say, the necessity for conversation in a therapeutic setting is not necessary, but it doesn't have to take as long. And is there a way that we can more powerfully get somebody grounded?
Yeah, that's it. I get it. What you're saying is like more about precision and accuracy, right? Instead of going this wide blanket because we don't know where it is, you're kind of narrowing in on the issue and be able to find that precisely. I completely understand.
Yeah. So neurolinguistic programming, it kind of provided a interesting tool that was more, just as you said, it's more laser-like, more precise. Because again, your entire history of your life and every experience is housed in your memory. And so, and we don't realize that, even as you're listening to me now, you're not listening in real time. There's a stagger. There's a bit of a delay between what I said, what you heard, and what you think I said, right? It's like 1/100th of a second, but it happens so fast that you hear all these sounds, you see me wildly gesticulating in front of you, and all this stuff's going on. Your brain's going, okay, what's he saying? What does it mean? Have I heard it before? Does it make sense to me? And then you respond with a comment. Like it's all like reality comes at us in delay because we're making it up as we go along, and it's a bit of a disconcerting thing to think about because it puts a tremendous amount of responsibility back on our shoulders.
Yeah, I know. I get it completely. I know there's certain things that with memory that first of all, it's some crazy statistic like 60% of what we think we remember is wrong. Like when so the brain, if it forgets something, it photoshops or fills it in right with something to make sense, but you have no idea anymore what's been photoshopped right into your reality. The other thing is there's that experiment where you move your finger. We have this huge blind spot, right? Like somewhere right around there. And if you move your finger, but when we look around, we don't ever see that blind spot. It's because again, it's photoshopping. It's taking picture frame 1, and it's like, here, and it's like, oh god, I'll fill in that in between. It's so cool. It's crazy the way the mind works. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and again, the more you get into it, like there was a point when I started getting into this stuff where it made me, I got a bit nauseous around the whole idea going, because my connection to reality was becoming very loosely, it was being kind of tethered, the tether was being kind of sawed away, and it didn't feel very good to know that. Wow, I mean, it's not, things are not as real as we think they are. I mean, they're as real as we comprehend them to be, but so much we have under our control. There's so much the burden of responsibility can be so huge. And it was a little bit overwhelming. Like I didn't feel good for a while when I was going through this stuff. It just didn't, yeah, it just, because of my perception of reality was being kind of unhinged. And it's not a good, not a good feeling when,
Yeah.
When
I
it's just,
understand.
you don't know if what you think is true. But on the other hand, what was really exciting was the idea that, that we could actually, we could take we could cut the journey that would normally take, let's say, a lifetime, and we reduce it by decades. We could take challenges that people are having, and within, for example, like last year, we had a retreat in Mexico where we had 15 people come down for an IM project immersion, and stuff that people were, they struggled with for years, like years of their life. We would sit somebody in a chair, we call it the hot seat, and we'd take them through a series of exercises, and we would actually physically extract a memory, and they didn't have to talk about it, right? So part of the deal with the process is that you don't actually say what you're thinking, because quite often, and I remember my own experiences of being in a therapeutic setting, you go in and they walk you through the process, and they're asking, and they're kind of directing you. They're trying not to be directive, but they still are, that they have to draw it at you somehow. And what I found is that I'm only giving the information that's comfortable and safe for me to give, but it's not really the truth. It's not really what I want to talk about. How many people actually have the courage to actually speak the insanity that goes through their head sometimes? And I go, no, you're not getting any of that. So I'm going, well, I paid my $200 for the hour, and unless and there's some really skilled therapists out there, but like in most things, right, there's more unskilled than skilled. And I'm going, this is insane. The truth is still left sitting in my mind, and
Yes.
I can't get it out.